I'm Connor Old, and welcome to Connor the Contrarian, a weekly podcast where I talk about movies that either the critics or the audiences didn't like that I think are actually great movies. And this week, I'm going to be talking about my major guilty pleasure movie, as well as what that exactly means. I'm talking about none other than Transformers: Age of Extinction. Now, before we jump into the movie, I always like to talk about the cultural landscape of the film at the time of release. This helps us understand the mind frame of society, which greatly influences those initial reviews. This is the fourth Transformers movie, a franchise that had a lot of hype around it for the first one, but was soon hated by the majority of the film criticism community, making it sort of their new favorite franchise to crap on. But despite their hatred for the movie, it became a box office juggernaut, each movie making more than the next. People kept showing up, so they kept making more of them. And this movie has actually a sort of a special connection to me because it was, in part, the reason why I really got into movies. I used to be, and still very am, so a big video games fan. I knew everything about the industry, but could never really learn about the classics because either access was limited, and because overall it was a pretty expensive hobby. I thought I knew games well, and I was a fan of these cinematic games like Uncharted, and I love the storytelling of it all. And really, when I saw this movie in theaters, I remember liking it and liking the original and really didn't know what to expect. And when I walked out enjoying the movie, I didn't really understand why it was so disliked by all these critics. And I decided to make an active effort to know more about film so that I could one day understand what's wrong with this movie. Now, I would like to say I officially have figured out sort of what's wrong, quote unquote, with this movie, but that doesn't mean I still don't think it's an enjoyable movie that doesn't get enough credit, and that doesn't mean I still don't enjoy it anymore. And I think doesn't get enough credit as to what it's exactly doing. There's more nuance to this movie that you, the listener, probably didn't appreciate the first time. So, let's jump into the movie. We open to alien spaceships in space as we see Earth and the Sun sort of peeking over the horizon, and we get the title card, Transformers: Age of Extinction. We go down to Earth and we see a dinosaur's perspective, millions and millions of years ago, as the alien life has landed down on Earth and sort of sweeps through and slowly destroys the planet. We cut back to modern day, somewhere in the Arctic, to see a group of geologists who have found remnants of dinosaurs who were affected by that original alien attack we just saw. And we're not frozen in ice, but almost a steel-like. It is definitely alien. We cut then to Texas, and we meet our protagonist, Cade Yeager, played by the always wonderful Mark Wahlberg. He's driving to his town, and we see a billboard in the background about Chicago, filling us in with the sort of events of the last movie, particularly the third one, where we see Chicago get completely destroyed and a huge battle going on between the Autobots and the Decepticons. Sort of these small visual nods as to what happened in the previous films. But I'm not going to explain all those events just because this is first and foremost, I think, a sequel, which sometimes is rare these days. He meets Lucas, played by T.J. Miller, who's the guy he works with, and Cade's an inventor, so he likes to go and goes into places like abandoned movie theaters that we see at the beginning of the film and takes things hoping to scrap them or polish them up for money and sort of repurpose them. And while he's in this abandoned movie theater, he sees a truck in there and brings it home. Then we see him bringing the truck back to his farm where he works, and he lives with his daughter, Tessa, played by Nicola Peltz. We see that Cade's got sort of a barn full of these inventions and scrap pieces that could, somehow be useful one day. I do want to mention that Cade is actually not a boring character, and I think it's cool that he is an inventor because it gives him sort of a preconceived philosophy of creating and trying to make the world a better place. We sympathize with him because he hasn't paid rent in 6 months and is just trying to get his daughter through college, being a single dad. And Wahlberg really gives him a youthful spirit and makes him seem like a kid with these big aspirations, while also being insanely, and I mean insanely, protective of his daughter. We then cut to James Savoy, played by Titus Welliver, a military man who is leading his team to track down an Autobot. We learn that since the events of the last movie, the Autobots have gone into hiding, and that the American government is trying to hunt them down, and using their help with the Decepticons. The best way they can stop this, however, is to find their leader, Optimus Prime. We sort of learn their philosophy that the people of Earth aren't saved until all of them are dead. We next see Cade working on the truck he found, which leads him to finding out and showing to Tessa and Lucas that he thinks it may be a transformer. They don't know what to do, and it's not long before government head Harold Attinger, played by Kelsey Grammer, hears about it, and the military is on their way. Cade starts to try and fix the transformer, and when Savoy arrives and actually confronts Cade about the transformer, he doesn't give anything away. Mark Wahlberg gives sort of a childlike charm to it, thinking, this could be his next big break. He doesn't want to give something away that easily just for some money to get Tessa through college. That ultimately, he is in a tight pinch for money, but he's not going to sacrifice his morals to do so. It's a pivotal scene in really sort of understanding the character of Cade. But because he's not giving anything away, and he says that Cade doesn't know where he is. Notice he said he instead of it, because they're talking about a car, right? Savoy automatically knows he's lying, and he has his men break into the barn looking for it. Savoy grabs Tessa and uses her as leveraging power, threatening to kill her. And right before he's about to pull the trigger, Optimus Prime comes in from out of the barn and he shoots his way out, and he does the transform as he does in a roll in slow motion. And this whole sequence is Michael Bay. It's pure Michael Bay. And really, that follows a pattern. He has a scene like this in a lot of his movies, especially sort of the first action sequence. You think the beginning, the sort of Ku Klux Klan raid in Bad Boys 2, for example. He uses low-angle shots to make the heroes feel grandiose, has a lot of American flags in the shots, and it always seems to be magic hour, giving everyone this sort of beautiful natural light factor that gives it this Bay glistening feel. He has a visual style, you have to give him credit for that, and he uses it in the scene. And when doing his action scenes, man does he love explosions and slow motion. When Optimus exits the barn, we get an awesome shot of him shooting in slow motion, as I mentioned, and with all the cars, they're all exploding around him. And then Cade, Tessa, and Lucas escape, but as they're running away from the house, it gets blown up by one of the government-working Decepticons. And then they're running, and none other than Tessa's boyfriend picks them up. His name is Shane, and he drives. Shane is played by Jack Rayner as they embark on a car chase that goes from the cornfields through the town. And while this is happening, Cade is so focused on Tessa having a boyfriend that he never knew about that he just starts asking him questions and gets her classic Mark Wahlberg frustrated and mad. What do you mean, boyfriend? The action in the chase is sort of directly contrasted with the sort of humor that's going on in the car, because the action is well directed and feels reminiscent of early Bay, like Bad Boys or The Rock chase scenes. And we all have to remember that Bay knows how to film car chases, and the more he learns that the more near misses that affect the hero, and the more things can sort of crash together, like Hot Wheels you can play as a kid, ultimately the better. The scene ends with them getting out of the damaged car and running away from a Decepticon missile that causes a massive explosion that kills Lucas. Optimus picks them up, and they manage to drive away and hide away at an abandoned gas station. Now, Cade confronts Shane about this, and he threatens to call the police, but then the sort of scene humorously explains to us the somehow sort of odd, ridiculous Romeo and Juliet law that Texas has that allows them to date despite her being only 17. Cade is our protagonist, so we're not really liking Shane, but he helped us out, so right now it's fine. Optimus picks them up in the morning, and they are officially on the run. But they have help. We meet 4 other Autobots who have gained contact with Optimus. Crosshairs, played by John DiMaggio, an Australian trench coat wearing robot. Drift, played by Ken Watanabe, a sword wielding samurai Autobot. And then Hound, played by John Goodman, a cigar chomping heavy Autobot. And then of course Bumblebee, who doesn't talk. They're all that's left. And Cade and the crew are now also on the run, they've realized, and really they know that they can't trust the government, and so they want to help in whatever way they can, because the Autobots are the only one that have helped them, and sort of people have forgotten that, and people have forgotten that the Autobots were the one that helped them in the battle. They forgot that ultimately these were the good guys, and that they were trying to help the humans the entire time, but I think a lot of people just sort of lumped them into one pile. We then meet Joshua, played by Stanley Tucci, the CEO of KSI, an innovative technology company obsessed with the future. He meets with the geologist from the opening scene and she explains to him what he saw, that the Transformers caused the Ice Age and froze these dinosaurs in steel. But he's not interested because he has farmed what the Transformers are actually made of through the destruction in Chicago and has harnessed that power to allow him to make whatever he wants, like a gun or a Beats pill. Cough, cough, advertisement. Shameless, but obviously recognized and has a bit of a wink and a nudge aspect. But he's not making Beats pills, he's making his own Transformer, Galvatron. Cade and his crew know this, so they sneak into the building to see if they could stop it. They successfully do so and find out that Joshua and Attinger are working together to make their own Transformers. And that sort of the load of crap about the Transformers being dangerous was not true, because Attinger just wants to make money off making his own Transformers, cornering the market. And in order to do that, he has to get rid of all the Autobots so he can have only his own. It's not long before Cade gets caught snooping around, and before they take him in, the Autobots come crashing in. They confront Joshua, and he sort of fills them in on the dark reality that is clouding this sort of entire movie, that he can make you, and that you guys are no longer needed. As the Autobots leave, Joshua launches Galvatron on the Autobots. But they can't control him because they've used the parts of the dead Decepticons. It has a mind of its own and starts to take over and starts to create collateral damage on a bridge as he fights Optimus. He's definitely stronger than Optimus and beats him up pretty easily. And the sequence is classic Transformers action that we see in some action movies, but not as well done in the Transformers movies. It has almost a 9/11 aspect feeling because there's shaky cam from the ground level as we see these gigantic figures moving and crashing and destroying everything in their path. It's like the opening of War of the Worlds. It gives us a glimpse into sort of what Cade and the crew are feeling at all times, and it's an effective technique and it works. The battle ends with Galvatron taking Optimus and Tessa into his alien spaceship, and Cade slow-mo punches the ground. But thankfully, with the help of the other Autobots, they're still alive. They help Cade and Shade get onto the ship as they try and find Tessa. And this is where the rest of the movie really lands the sci-fi aspect that people often neglect about this franchise. There are some amazing designs and cool world building that all feels of a piece in this Transformers world. Like when Cade takes one of the swords off the wall and it turns into a gun, which helps him fight off the robots on board. Then they find Tessa, and she runs into the arms of Shane, who she calls a hero, and Cade, once again with his wisecracks of, oh yeah, he's the one, I didn't do anything. Now, to get off the ship, there's a sweaty palm sequence where they need to go across these beams that connect to a building, and when backup comes from the ship, in the form of these sort of robot dogs, robot wolves, it starts shaking, and it ends ultimately with them about to fall, and then the Autobots catching them. Then, as we land, we crash into a Bud Light truck, and a guy comes out, because his car got destroyed, says, you better have insurance. And then Cade goes, what do you mean insurance? It's a freaking spaceship. And then picks up a Bud Light and slowly drinks it towards camera. And a great sort of, oh, really sequence, which is, I think, in my part, at least what I take away with it, the sort of charm of this series. The almost totally shameless, absurd advertising that sort of just plopped in there. It gives it a little bit of appeal to me. The fight is done for now, but we know that this is just the start of it, because if Galvatron gets the seed, a doomsday device, he can kill millions. So Cade and the Autobots make it clear that this is the last time they're going to be helping humans. And Optimus is mad because everything he did for the humans is being forgotten so quickly. And Cade has to explain to him in a heartfelt sequence that really what makes them humans is our mistakes, and that they happen, but he has to believe it will turn out sort of all right in the end, because it always does. Now, with that invigorating speech, we transition into Hong Kong, as Joshua is on the run since he's now a liability to the government. He's the only one who could potentially control them, and Cade finds Joshua to help him in the hopes that hopefully he can help. There's an intense chase scene on the roofs of Hong Kong, interjected with sort of Stanley Tucci humor, like when they're getting chased and there are these Chinese ladies slowly walking, sort of blocking the door. He says, how do you say move out of the way in Chinese? But Savoy and his military team eventually catch up with the crew that leads with Cade and Savoy in a fist fight in an apartment. that ends with Cade picking up a football and tossing it at his head and pushing him out of a window. So why is there a football in a Hong Kong apartment? Because Michael Bay. That's why. The 4 Autobots aren't enough, so they need reinforcements. And Optimus calls the old Dinobots and ancient Transformers. What we've been waiting for this entire time. Optimus Prime riding a fire-breathing robot T-Rex. We see Optimus's team come in and just turn the tide of the battle, ultimately driving Galvatron back. I mean, think Helm's Deep at the end of the Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, as Gandalf just comes in. I mean, it's got the same sort of effect. It's well done. He then, the robots sort of confront Joshua, and he eventually admits that, something should never be invented. That, sounds eerily familiar to something we are facing today, like AI. Now they need to escape the city as they're all in a car driving in reverse, and the city is collapsing around them. It's actually the best camera work in the entire movie, and some of the best camera work I've seen since a movie like Mad Max Fury Road. It starts off high from a crane shot, and then gets up really close, and even uses the sunroof of the car to go sort of in and out. It's crazy what they can achieve today, and the sequence is absolutely chaos, but the camera tracks the action all the way, keeping you engaged as they dodge left and right, missing falling debris. It feels almost like a roller coaster ride, and I'd say it's similar to a Mad Max action sequence, Mad Max Fury Road action sequence, or even that sequence, that one shot that's so brilliant in Children of Men. They make it out of the city, but Cade goes back because Optimus is still in trouble. And Tessa and Shane don't leave him, though, and they all go back into the battle. And when Cade gets confronted and almost killed by Attinger, Optimus Prime turns around, kills Attinger, and Cade uses his alien gun to fire the robot fighting Optimus Prime. They have each other's back, and it's a really momentous moment in the franchise, because for the first time in the series, Optimus has really trusted a human aside other than Sam, which was Shia LaBeouf's character. And Galvatron isn't dead, and we sort of see him as he walks away, which I don't like, because I think they need new villains, and my problem, I think, is that it runs a little bit too long. I would probably cut 30 minutes, which is, never good, and probably kill the villain to really cement the sort of stakes of this movie. But despite that, the film ends as we hear an inspirational speech and threatening message from Optimus, that the makers need to leave planet Earth alone, because he's coming for them. And I mean, come on, you know what you're getting. It's the 4th movie in this franchise, and they're all the same. The reason I gravitate to this before is that I believe that this one, they have fully embraced it. Everyone knows what kind of movie this is going to be. When you see the trailer and it has a robot riding a robot dinosaur that breathes fire, you know what you're getting into. It's over-the-top action, cool cars, and explosions. And it's a lot of ways a teenage boy's fantasy, and I saw this as a teenager, and it resonated. It works. It achieved what it was going for. And it's actually rare these days to get people to go to the theaters, and I think Transformers does that with its amazing delivers on that spectacle and amazing special effects, and it gives you enough action to keep you entertained. I'm not saying this is fine cinema, but you can have a lot of fun with it, and I think there is preferential treatment to other movies that do the same thing but don't nearly get as lambasted as Michael Bay, and that's not fair. I'm a Michael Bay fan, as I said in the Pain and Gain episode, and I think he's actually a very talented filmmaker. So if you're looking for an action movie with great effects, more relatable human characters than previous Transformers installments, and a rich sci-fi aspect, watch this movie. Because for what it is, Transformers Age of Extinction is a great movie. I'm Connor Old. Make sure you rate and review the podcast on iTunes. It really helps. I also have a YouTube channel. Just search Connor Old, and you'll find other film-related content, including a series that I'm doing right now called Old on Old, where I look at a classic movie I've never seen before and talk about why it's a classic. I have a Masters of Controlled Chaos episode that talks all about Michael Bay and his career. So if you enjoyed this episode, maybe check out that one. Just search Connor Old to find the podcast there, and really all of my content. And that's about it. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and until next time, stay tuned.